Crows have always been within the background of Dark Souls, lurking on the edge of sight or chattering in strangely childlike voices as they demand you drop precious upgrade materials or mundane stones. The crows are not bosses, nor are they conventional NPCs, yet they're always there, perched just outside the flow of your journey, as if they belong to some parallel current of the world, full of whimsy and endlessly greedy for gifts. Despite this greed, they never actually ask you for souls as a currency. They just want things. Precious things, pointless things, highly valuable things, unassuming things. And if you indulge them, they reward you in kind. The whole exchange feels more like a ritual than a transaction, and the more you notice them across the series, the more mysterious but simultaneously familiar they become. The possible first crow you will come across is the giant one that carries you from the Undead Asylum to Firelink Shrine in Dark Souls 1. It appears out of nowhere, grasping your limp, decaying, hollowed body in its claws and hauling you away over the ocean to Lordran. It's completely and entirely uninterested in anything except moving you from one place to another. It feels more like a force of nature than a character. But to other explorative players, your first experience with a corvid will be Snuggly, the crow tucked into a little nest off the cliff edge of the asylum. A tiny voice chirps from a pile of twigs, asking for warm and soft things. You drop something as pointless as the pendant, or as valuable as Manus' soul, reload your game, and find an entirely new item in its place. It's so unceremonious that many players stumble upon it through trial and error, only realizing much later that they've participated in a hidden kind of barter. From there, the pattern begins within the franchise. Secret crow's nests hidden away that ask for offerings and give treasures of all possible levels of intrigue in return. Dark Souls 2 gives us Dinah and Tillo, two squabbling little voices in a nest above things betwixt. Dark Souls 3 goes back to the singular crow called the Nestling. The common denominator between all of the games is that none of the merchant crows ever show themselves. Technically, the only corvid the player can confirm to indeed be bird-like in Dark Souls is the giant one from Dark Souls 1. That idea aside, across all three games, these crows are never actually explained. No NPC mentions them, no lore item describes them, and yet they quietly persist, similar to Alvina or Sweet Xiaoqua. This kind of design, the deliberate omission of explanation, is very classically From Software. It leaves space for players to imagine, to speculate, and to wonder why something exists, even if it isn't directly tied to the central story. And the more you think about them, the more their presence seems partially deliberate. It's worth noting the real-world associations when it comes to crows. It is no secret that crows are highly intelligent birds. They are known to use tools, solve puzzles, remember human faces, and even hold what looks like to be funerals for their dead. In many mythologies, they're messengers between worlds. In Japanese folklore, the three-legged crow Yatagarasu guides lost heroes. So, slipping them into Dark Souls as strange, interdimensional middlemen fits perfectly with the never-ending death that seeps into each cycle of the flame. As I mentioned briefly, these crows don't use souls as currency despite being merchants. In fact, they don't seem to value economy at all. They literally just want things. Sometimes they give you something far more valuable than what you originally offered. In Dark Souls 3, a black firebomb will present a titanite chunk, and in 2, a smooth and silky stone has a chance to supply the incredibly rare Channeler's Trident. And in the first game, giving Snuggly a dung pie will give you a demon titanite in return. It really feels like their economy runs on random whimsy rather than paying what the item is actually worth. Obviously, that is not how a shop works at all. It's actually more similar to how an offering works. When you trade with them, you don't sit and look at the menu wondering if you should level up before you use a merchant despite needing both the levels and upgrade materials equally. Instead, you simply remove an object from your inventory and place it into their nest and quit out. When you load back in, the exchange has taken place without a single soul ever being taken from you. There's something weirdly ancient about it. Like these crows are tied to the flame in a way much older and much more instinctual than souls and the hollow human balance and blacksmithing and leveling. Of course, the elephant in the room is that these crows can speak. Sort of. Their voices are garbled, childlike, with crow-like cores mixed in. They don't so much as converse as much as they repeat strange little phrases. It's as if they're not speaking a language at all, but echoing the fragments of a language they've heard from countless passing undead. Similar to a parrot, they are mimicking human speech rather than speaking outright. I personally think that actually helps to further elevate the intelligence that crows possess directly to the player. Even the specific items they give are telling, like the carved heads from Dark Souls 3 that you can drop to play canned voice lines. These carvings have no mechanical use except for communication between players in a multiplayer world. It's almost like the crows are keepers of communication, handing out strange echoes of human voices as if they're hoarding memories rather than objects. That fixation on little overlooked things fits crows perfectly. Real-life crows are notorious for collecting trinkets, bottle caps, bits of foil, stones, twigs, and other random mundane items. But they don't collect these items to scavenge. They collect the items in the same way that a human will collect figurines or books or paintings. Snuggly hides at the back of the asylum, whispering for warm and soft things. The words are strange but fitting. Warm matches humanity items, and soft might be in reference to things like the rubbish item, which appears to have some kind of soft-looking material mixed into it. It's actually worth noting that the name Snuggly was given by players and not by Miyazaki, which makes the whole thing feel even more like a shared secret. Snuggly is childlike, shy, and it's the purest form of this mechanic, mysterious and optional, tucked out of sight and rewarding those who remember to visit old places. To those not a part of this hidden secret, there is only one crow a player will come across. The giant one. It appears, performs its role, and sits passively until the player chooses to return back to the asylum. There's no factual suggestion it's even the same entity as Snuggly, yet the connection feels somewhat implied. They both dwell at the asylum. One handles journeys, and the other trades in strange fragments that can only be acquired on those journeys. This difference could subjectively symbolize two aspects of death and rebirth: the great cycle that carries souls between worlds, and the little scraps of memory that cling to those souls. Dinah and Tillo bring a nice playfulness to the role. They chatter over each other, almost like squabbling siblings. Unlike Snuggly, these two want stones and only stones, but they still reward offerings placed in their nest. But this time the system is much more mischievous as it becomes a raffle system. Prism stones can return 8 different items. Small, smooth, and silky ones can return 14 items. Normal, smooth, and silky stones can return 20, but then the petrified somethings can only return 7. There's no way to know what Dinah and Tillo will give you, which brings a gambling system to the franchise, as the stones are farmable, and you also can't elevate your chances of getting something as rare as the Channeler's Trident through any items that heighten your item discovery. I would argue that the choice to make Dinah and Tillo a duo, unlike Snuggly, fits quite well with this endless rekindling of the flame, which brings kingdom after kingdom. Suddenly, this random and otherwise pointless crow becomes a lineage, a whole little culture persisting in the margins. Finally, the nestling takes the role to its most surreal point. Her voice is very high-pitched, almost cartoonish, repeating nonsense syllables, I think. Pickle and pump-a-rum. The gambling system is removed and has been brought back to Snuggly's ritual of one particular item equals a specific item. The nestling dwells atop Firelink Shrine, and notably quite out of the way, having the player navigate across a ledge that overlooks the bonfire. They offer the most varied and bizarre trades, everything from pieces of Celaire's armor to infusion gems to communication carvings. This large array suits the nestling quite well, as she is at the end of the world, so it would be pretty valid for her to have all kinds of items rather than mostly upgrade materials like Snuggly or weaponry like Dinah and Tillo. The cycle has repeated so many times that it's possible the nestling simply does not regard the aforementioned items as whimsical as her ancestors did. For example, trading in any sacred chime will return the Help Me carving, whereas in Dark Souls 1, a weapon that valuable would probably return a Titanite slab or a petrified dragon bone in Dark Souls 2. This idea of jumbling up what it means to trade with Corvids fits right into Lothric, where literally not a single thing matters much anymore. The Crows of Dark Souls don't belong to any kingdom, covenant, or even timeline. They sit outside the world struggle for souls and how to mediate them between self and others. From what we can tell, they will never die out as a species, and they do not seem to care about the rise and fall of lords. They only want small, sometimes forgotten things, and in return, they give other small, sometimes forgotten things. It's such a tiny, minuscule loop in the vast space that is Dark Souls, but in a world built on endless cycles, I think that makes them strangely eternal. In fact, they might even be the only truly content beings in Dark Souls. These crows don't seek to recycle the flame or fear the abyss. They don't hunger for souls to escape madness. They just collect silly little echoes and playfully pass them along when the right person comes along. In a series obsessed with death and despair, the crows, I think, represent something gentler. Persistence without ambition, and memory without mourning. The simple and mundane continuation of life in a miniature space of the flame. I personally think that the crows remind us that not everything has to burn or persist or fade. Some things just perch on the cliffside, spewing nonsense and keep going forever. Some things simply are, just like trees in a forest or pillows on a bed. Until next time, praise the sun, and rubbish is not pump-a-rum.
Don't you dare let yourself go hollow, lest my time spent on you be wasted.